Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Welcome to the class of African literature. Previously, what we discussed was about the textual analysis of Things Fall Apart, and almost the 8th chapter we covered in the previous lecture. And till the chapter 8, we came to know about the Achebe foreshadows the arrival of the colonial people or the colonizers in the chapter 8. So now move on towards the chapter 9. This chapter foretells the relationship of uh, mother and the child, and it also exposes Akonko's inner feelings. So the relationship between Akwifi and Zinma is not a typical parent-child relationship. It is more like one between equals. Like Zinma used to call her her mother with her name, and Akwifi receives a great deal of comfort and companionship from her daughter. And because she has lost so many children, she loves and respects her daughter all the more. Although motherhood is regarded as the crowning achievement of a woman's life, Akwifi prizes Zinna so highly, not for the status motherhood brings her, but rather for the love and companionship that she offers. The chapter this does tell about the Akonko's guilt over killing Acme Fiona, and it also exposes that Okonko is not a cold and heartless man. He simply cannot escape the haunting images of his despised father's womanly nature or qualities. The Akwifi's dedication to her daughter Azinma exemplifies the important role child play in a woman's life in European society. And Akwifi says that children are a woman crowning glory. Yeah, and before Zinma was born, her own life was consumed with the desire to have a healthy child. But the 9 times she had lost children in infancy. So, a woman's status in the Igbo society is related to how many children she bears and how many of them are male. So, but although women childbearing abilities are an important aspect of their status, so Akonko and Ekwefi's deep concern and fondness for Azimna shows that despite the divide between manly and womanly qualities, women play an essential role in Igbo society, and women are responsible for preparing most of the celebrity activities which strengthen relations within the village and with other communities. Women also create the decorations for the huts as well as elaborate the body art. So, another important aspect of women in Igbo society is represented by Chilo, the goddess, the priestess, who is significant because as a woman, she speaks on the behalf of the god Agabla. Chilo refers to Zinma as her daughter, which may indicate that she will replace Chalo's position as priestess. And in the chapter 6, when Chalo and Equife they had discussion, and she said that this child it has came to stay. This observation foreshadowed that Zinma was no longer an Ogmanje because the medicine man jag up her. There is something name of that medicine. So this chapter and mutually supportive interaction between the woman is shown in in these chapters. Like for example, Konko's wives they frequently try to protect one another from his anger. Before Zinma's birth, Equife was not jealous of Konko's first wife, only she expressed bitterness at her own misfortune. While Okonko gathers medicines for the fever, his other wives try to calm Equife's fear. So, Ekfi's friendship with the Chilo too is an example of the female bonding, and the incident with Chilo creates a real dilemma for Equife. whose fear of possible repercussions of disobeying her shows that Shiloh's role as a priestess is taken seriously. It is just not ceremonial. So, but Equifax and Conco's love for their child is strong enough that they are willingly, they are willing to defy religious authority. S- and like she chooses Equifi chooses her daughter over the gods, and in doing so, Equifi contradicts Akonko's ideas of femininity and demonstrates that strength and bravery are not just the masculine attributes. So Akonko also disobeys Chilo and follows her to the case. But he's too careful to show the respect to Chalo, and as she's a woman, but as a priestess, she can order and chastise him openly. Her authority is not to be taken lightly. In the chapter 10, the author, like the Chibe, the chapter 10, it revolves around the trial system or the judicial system. Achibe shows the or gives a close up view of community judicial system with its similarities to Western traditions. So, in the trial of Ozolo versus his wife's family, both sides they present their cases to the ruling members of society. The Ogo, that is something I don't know the exact pronunciation, but it spells as EGWU. So the nine the Ogo represent the nine villages of basically it does represent the Ogo represents the elder of the Faklan. So the nine Ogo represent the nine villages of Umofia, and each village has one Ogo as its spokesperson. Okonko has obviously risen to a lofty position of village leadership if he has indeed been selected as the Ogo representative for his village. And Ego has similarities to a jury led by a foreman or judge. For example, after retiring to the jury room for deliberation with the other eight Ego, the foreman or the judge returns a verdict that must be carried out. The public is allowed to watch the proceedings within the boundaries of their social group, that is, the elders, the other man, and the woman. So, it does show that they already have some, the laws, and they had law and order in their society in order to keep things going. Even before the arrival of the white people. So, the subject of the dispute, it was the domestic violence, is a familiar one today, but the way in which the community views Zolo beating his wife is not. The verdict illustrates the widespread disregard for women's rights by Umofian men. After hearing the case, the Ugbo order Bafo to go back to Zulu if he begs her. Uh, they remind Zulu that fighting with a woman is not manly. The embarrassment of begging his wife is the only punishment Zulu receives. So, this case illustrates that in Umofian culture, a woman is the property of her husband, but unwarranted and excessive violence against her uh, is inappropriate. So, note that the one man among the spectators asks why such a trifle, like as wife beating. Trifle should come before the agogo, means according to them that it isn't any matter that should be put forward to the court or to the jury to make any verdict. So they didn't give any importance to such kind of matter. So the trial and its verdict also recall Okonkwo's treatment of his own wives and how quickly such treatment is forgotten. So in the chapter 11, we are told that the tradition of oral tradition of storytelling in Igbo culture is a means for teaching history and customs, for passing on legends and beliefs, and for explaining the natural as well as supernatural words. The tradition is particularly well illustrated in the long story about a tortoise and his shell. And the story explains why a tortoise shell is not smooth, but it also reveals the proverb: a man who makes trouble for others is also making it for himself. So another indication that Okonkwo is bringing misfortune upon himself. In this chapter, Achebe represents a situation in which Okonkwo and Akwefi, they consider their family more important than the customs of their people, or even their own personal safety. Despite Charlo's warning about the oracle, beware woman lest he strike you in his anger. So Akwefi and Okonkwo, they risk their lives for the sake of their daughter. So means it when Okonkwo goes to the cave to help his wife and protect their daughter, he displays behavior uncharacteristics of him, like a man who uses village tradition to a fault in killing Ikmifuna even. And the priestess Chilo continues to refer to Zinma as my daughter, suggesting a relationship that may lead Chilo to choose Zinma as a priestess. So she has twice before acknowledged that Azimma may have special status because she was but is no longer an Ogbanche. Means the person who did Ogbanche is a term that is related to the evil, as you may relate this term with the term the Azaro was a bhikkhu and a bhikkhu child. Ogbanche and bhikkhu are both the same. So this chapter, the chapter 11 unfolds the soft side of Okonkwo as well, and the stories about tortoise and parrot, they tell their tradition of oral storytelling, and it does foreshadows the colonial rule as well. So the next chapter, this further contributes to the understanding of several tribal customs and beliefs. This Yuri ceremony, which illustrates the phase of the marriage process following the agreement on the bride price. As in the chapter 8, we also talked about the marriage of Obreka, the Obreka's daughter, Okonkwo's friend. So the bride price, the belief in the supernatural powers to attract people to a market and even to help rob them. The law that requires villagers to control and corral their animals or else pay a penalty. And the custom that requires all available women to chase an escaped cow home. These descriptions follow the events of the preceding chapter and illustrate the strength of villagers' beliefs in the earth goddess and her powers, even when she requires the near abduction of a child. So yet in most of the traditional events, the less than complete blind obedience to law or custom by some men and women suggest several strong individual personalities. For example, Akwefi is certainly one of the less traditionally constrained women, and Obreka represents men who question some traditions and rituals. Even then, Obreka is a reputed person and is respected in the clan. So this sexual activity is a subtle part of courtship and marriage rituals. uh, the chant and the at the end of the celebration, when I hold her waist beads, she pretends not to know, suggests that the sexual anticipation is an enjoyable game for women as well as for men. So in the preceding chapter, a conco's protective manly presence in the darkness by the cave triggers Equiface's fond memories of her first wedding night. So when he carried her into the into her his home, all the things that they started came into her mind, because Equife she eloped in order to marry a Congo, and she left her husband as she fell in love with Okonkwo because of his manly nature, but she wasn't aware of such aggressive nature at that time. So the chapter 13, it has tell about the chapter this chapter it is the sorry in the chapter 13, there appears the tragic event in Okonkwo's life, which will turn everything upside down. So in the literary tradition of the tragic hero, Okonkwo's undoing continues with his accidental killing of Zudo's son, the elder of the public, who just died before the day, the day after, day before the murder of his son in by the hands of Okonkwo. So early in the chapter, Achebe foreshadows the event with Okonkwo's memory of Zudo's warning about not killing Akmifuna. Um, Here, Achebe he builds dramatic tension by describing an increasingly frenzied scene of dancing, leaping, shouting, drumming, and the firing of guns, as well as the frightening appear of the Ugogo, the jury of the uh, villages. So the action climaxes with an explosion of a gunfire and then comes to a stop with the phrase, "All was silent." So Achebe emphasizes the gravity of Okonkwo's crime by saying that in Umofia, nothing like this had ever happened. So these things, these phrases, it does show the the gravity or the significance or the the deadliness of that event, or tragedy or the tragic nature of that event. So in this chapter, Obrika he quietly questions clan tradition, this time the tradition that demands the Okonkwo to be banished for 7 years because of an accidental killing. So this means that they were blindly following their customs and laws, and there wasn't any exception in case of any accidental happening, as it happened in the case of Okonkwo, that he accidentally killed Zudo's son. So but there wasn't any exception, and that is why Brika questions the traditions of the clan. So he also questions the tribal abandonment of twins, remembering his own innocent children left to die in the forest. So there was another tradition that they in the clan they thought of about the birth of the twin children as an evil or bad omen. So they used to leave those twin children in the forest to let them die. So this thing happened to Obrika, and that is why he started having questions in his mind about the clan's traditions. So this chapter also includes several intimations of impending doom for the clan and its traditions, and Achebe he ends the chapter dramatically with the proverb, If one finger brought oil, it soiled the others, suggesting that a Conco's crime may lead to the ultimate downfall of the Eumorphia itself, because they thought that in this crime it will enrage the earth goddess, and earth goddess will take revenge on everyone because of this doing, this accidental doing actually. So you may say that the a Conco's punishment, it emphasizes the importance of strong harmonious relations within the community, uh, and it also shows there were people in the clan or who were not satisfied with the traditions, especially Abrika and Navoy. And the Conco's exile basically separates him from the temporarily separates him from the offended community. They all burnt his property in order to show their anger. So, over a period of 7 years, any remaining anger and resentment from the Zudo's close relatives will dissipate, and the offender's place in the community will be restored. So, this was basically the idea of the punishment. In the chapter 14, we'll know about the experiences that Conco faces when during exile. So Achibe presents a paradox about the manly and womanly aspects of Conco's circumstances. So Akonko begins his exile deeply discouraged and unmotivated. While striving for even greater manliness, he committed a female murder. That is, he accidentally killed a boy during funeral ceremony, making things worse in his mind. He has been exiled to the woman's side of his family. Means he's been sent to the Mbata, the maternal clan of his maternal clan. So he thus feels that this transition is an extraordinary challenge to his manliness. His uncle reminds him, though, in the presence of his own large family, that Akonko should use the nurturing, means womanly, quality of his motherland, accept his situation, and in acceptance it will become far less devastating. So, and he'll recover. Okonkwo's need to maintain a positive, responsible leadership, like including male and female qualities of his own family in preparation for their eventual return to Eumorphia. So, the womanly aspect of his mother's village is not to be ignored, while Okonkwo waits for the right to return to his manly village. So, in the earlier chapters, Konko acknowledged the vital role of chai in his life. In this chapter, he just realized that his chai was not made for great things. A reluctant admission that he may not achieve everything he wants because his fate is predetermined. His acceptance of this possible limitation, however, doesn't last. So, with the description of the Izafi, the ceremony, this chapter completes the view of complex Igbo marriage rituals. So, apart from the Okonko's exile, if we recall the chapter 8, in which the Achibe foreshadows the about arrival of the white people, or where the village people or the clan tribe people, they were joking about the white men as lepers. So now in the chapter 15, Obrika tells a story of how the first white man ever seen in Abam is initially a matter of curiosity, especially his skin color and perhaps his bicycle. So, but the people of the Abam, they act violently, and they act when they they consult about their with their oracle. The oracle foreshadows or predicts that the white men or the will bring disaster. So or will be the instrument of disaster for the clan. So only then do the villagers they take violent action against this individual white man, an action criticized as premature by Uchanda Do. So, although Okonkwo agrees that men of the Bam were foolish for killing the white man, and Okonkwo he defies the Umofian customs, not resort to violence without first trying to negotiate a peaceful settlement and seeking the acceptance of war by an oracle. So the oracle never accepted a war with the white men, but it warned the villagers that the white men would spread destruction like locusts. So ironically, the white men represent the coming of the locust. From Revelation in Bible, the village will be destroyed, and among the villagers who are not harmed, nothing good will come to them. So of course, the retaliation of the by large a group of white men later wiping out the entire village is out of proportion to the initial crime. But this excessive action is Achibe's way of beginning the novel's characterization of extremist whites and their oppressive, often uninformed and insensitive attitude towards the natives. So, from this point on, the two groups are depicted as adversaries, and the future conflict seems inevitable. So, the Abam disaster is based on an actual event in 1905 in the community of Ahira. So, more information about the incident and its consequences appears in the earlier section. Like if we talk about the brief history of Nigeria. So this chapter ends with a light-hearted exchange that seems ominous only when the ending of the novel is revealed. Konko says, I do not know how to thank you, Obrika. I can tell you, kill one of your own sons for me. Konko, that will be not enough. Then kill yourself, Obrika says. Konko, forgive me. I shall not talk about thanking you anymore. So this shows the relationship of their relationship among themselves. So the the introduction of the European missionaries is not presented as a tragic event. It does contain some comic elements, and the villagers they mock the interpreter's dialect as well. The language in the chapter 16, the language that Achibe uses to describe the player that Navoy finds in Christianity reflects a Eumophia's seeming need to be soothed physically as well as spiritually. So Achibe sets up from the beginning of the novel a system of images that accentuate both the dry land and the tensest atmosphere in the village. Uh, the image of the words of the hymn as raindrops, it does relieving Noah's parched soul, refers not only to relief from every desert like heat with which Africa is commonly associated, but also to the act of bringing Noah out of his supposed ignorance and into enlightenment through Christianity. So it begins to quench his thirst for answers that Igbo religion has not been able to provide him. So, so unsurprisingly, Noah is highly receptive to the new, more humane appearing doctrine because he is a sensitive young man with deep concerns about certain customs of his people. So Achibe provides a humorous illustration of the difficulties of dialects. even within the Igbo language. The missionary's translator is an Igbo, but he speaks a dialect that pronounces some words and expressions differently from a Yumofian Igbo. The word myself comes out as my buttocks, resulting in some humorous translation of the white man's message. So here in these chapters, he does represent the like how the people they mock about the interpreter's dialect, and also the noise attraction, or that how the Christianity it was appealing to Noah, because it was answering those questions, and which Noah was asking from his own custom, or from his own people or own clan. So that was the one reason that was attracting Noah towards that religion, towards Christianity. And in the further chapters or upcoming chapters, we'll get to know that how the Christianity it was bringing everyone into its under its umbrella, and what the techniques, how they were tackling the things they were using in order to convert everyone, and in order to spread the Christianity. So for now, this is all, and remaining we'll discuss in the next lectures. Again, I have put references from these. I have mixed some data from both the the sites. You can go there and search it on your own as well. So thank you for your patience. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.